Nobody expected the fourth inning to explode like that. The crowd at Oracle Park had barely settled back into their seats. The Giants were locked in a tight, suffocating battle against the Dodgers, the kind of game where every pitch feels like a verdict. Logan Webb had been dominant. His sinker was biting. His command was sharp. Everything was working. And then, it wasn't. Back-to-back hits. A runner in scoring position. The energy in the stadium shifted. And Logan Webb, one of the most composed pitchers in all of baseball, suddenly stopped. He stepped off the mound. His eyes weren't on the batter. They weren't on the catcher. They were locked, burning, on Shohei Ohtani standing in the dugout. What happened next was something nobody in that stadium, nobody watching on television, and nobody scrolling highlights that night was prepared for. Webb pointed. He said words that were clearly readable on every lip-reading camera in the building. And those words were unmistakable. "Shohei, you're cheating. Punish him. Right now." Within 60 seconds, umpires had surrounded the Dodgers' dugout. A 1-minute video had been pulled from the stadium feed. And Shohei Ohtani and Kim Hye-sung were at the center of one of the most explosive sign-stealing accusations Major League Baseball had seen since the Houston Astros scandal rocked the sport to its foundation. This is not a rumor. This is not a headline written to grab your attention and disappear. What you are about to read goes deeper than the accusation, into what really happened on that field, what the investigation actually found, and what this moment reveals about the invisible war happening between pitchers and batters in every single Major League Baseball game. To understand why Logan Webb reacted the way he did, you have to understand the inning that preceded the explosion. Webb had retired the first 9 Dodgers batters in near-perfect fashion. His sinker was generating weak contact. His changeup was disappearing out of the strike zone at the exact moment batters committed to it. On paper, and in practice, he was untouchable. Then the fourth inning arrived. The first batter worked a full count and fouled off 3 consecutive pitches before drawing a walk. Frustrating, but not alarming. The second batter, and this is where the story begins, appeared to time Webb's pitches with an almost surgical precision. Not guessing. Not getting lucky. Knowing. He lined a sharp single into left center field. Webb stepped back. He looked in at his catcher. He shook off a sign. Changed the sequence. Went with a pitch he hadn't thrown all game. The third batter crushed it. Webb stood on the mound. His jaw tightened. Because he had changed the sequence deliberately. He had broken from everything he had established. And yet, somehow, the Dodgers batter had still been ready. Still in the right mental position. Still one step ahead. That is the moment Webb began to suspect something was wrong. Here is what most fans watching from the stands, or from their living rooms, do not fully appreciate: sign stealing in baseball is not always a trash can. It is not always noise. It is not always obvious. At its most sophisticated, it is a system of microsignals. A subtle shift in a base runner's stance. A hand placed near a specific part of the body. A glance held half a second longer than necessary. A movement so small and natural that only someone watching with specific, trained eyes would ever notice it. This is the level of the game that Webb believed he was seeing. In the dugout, between innings, he spoke directly to his pitching coach. He didn't accuse anyone yet. He simply said, "Watch the dugout. Watch what happens before I release the ball." They watched. And something appeared. Something that, when examined frame by frame in the video that would later be released publicly, became the center of the investigation. The video that circulated after the game was not leaked. It was pulled directly from the official stadium feed, multiple camera angles synchronized into a single 60-second sequence. The clip begins approximately 12 seconds before Webb's first pitch in the fourth inning and ends just after the confrontation began. In that 60 seconds, the video shows two things happening simultaneously. First, Shohei Ohtani, standing in the Dodgers dugout, makes a series of what appear to be routine movements, adjusting his batting gloves, looking toward the field, shifting his position near the railing. Second, Kim Hye-sung, who was on base at second, appears to mirror certain movements, head turns, body angles, at specific moments before Webb released pitches. The question that drove the entire investigation was simple: were these connected? Or was this the most expensive coincidence in baseball? Webb believed it was not a coincidence. He had seen enough. He stepped off the mound, pointed toward the dugout, and said what he said, loudly enough that multiple microphones picked it up and clearly enough that the entire stadium understood exactly what he meant. Umpires moved immediately. What followed was not a brief conversation at the mound. Major League Baseball's investigation into this incident was structured, serious, and conducted with the kind of thoroughness the league had promised after the Astros scandal fundamentally damaged public trust in the sport. Investigators reviewed not just the one-minute video, but every available camera angle from the entire game. They cross-referenced pitch sequences with the movements captured on camera. They interviewed multiple parties, though the specific names involved in those conversations have not been fully disclosed. Here is what the investigation ultimately concluded. The movements made by Ohtani in the dugout were determined to be within normal behavior for a player observing a game from the bench. His adjustments to his batting gloves, his positioning, and his sight lines were consistent with how he has been observed in dozens of other games across multiple seasons. The synchronized appearance of Kim Hye-sung's movements was flagged as ambiguous, meaning investigators could not conclusively determine whether they were deliberate signals or natural coincidence based on the footage available. No formal punishment was issued. But the investigation did not close without consequence. The league issued a formal reminder to all 30 teams regarding dugout communication protocols and the limits of base runner signaling. And Webb, far from being dismissed as a frustrated pitcher lashing out, was acknowledged internally as having raised a legitimate concern in good faith. The accusation may not have resulted in a suspension. But it lit a fire inside every pitching staff in baseball. Here is the truth that this moment put on full public display: the war between pitchers and batters in Major League Baseball is not just physical. It is psychological. It is strategic. It is a chess match conducted at 95 miles per hour, and every advantage, legal or otherwise, is being pursued constantly. The greatest hitters in the world are not simply reacting to pitches. They are gathering information before the pitch is thrown. They are reading tendencies, studying patterns, anticipating sequences based on everything they have observed and everything they have been told by their coaches and teammates. This is what makes elite pitchers so valuable. It is not just velocity. It is not just movement. It is unpredictability. The ability to break patterns. To make the batter's preparation worthless by refusing to be consistent. Webb understood this. That is why the appearance of knowing, in his batters, was so alarming to him. He had been unpredictable by design. And yet the results suggested someone had a map. Shohei Ohtani did not respond with anger. He did not hold a press conference and attack Webb. He did not post on social media. He did not send representatives to issue strongly worded statements. He did what he always does. He went back to work. In the innings that followed the confrontation, Ohtani's preparation in the dugout was visibly the same. Unhurried. Focused. Consistent. His routine did not change. His demeanor did not change. When he came to bat in the 6th inning, he was locked in, not rattled, not distracted, and he put together an at-bat that reminded everyone watching exactly why this man is spoken about differently from every other player on the field. It was not defiance for the cameras. It was simply who he is. And that, more than anything else in this story, is what makes this moment worth examining. Because whether or not a sign was stolen, whether or not a signal was passed, what the camera captured is this: a player whose preparation, whose routine, and whose mental approach to the game operates at a level that consistently makes the people around him feel like something impossible is happening. Sometimes what looks like cheating is simply excellence that hasn't been explained yet. Logan Webb raised a question that baseball has not fully answered and may never fully answer. Not because the investigation was incomplete. Not because the league was protecting anyone. But because the line between genius preparation and unfair advantage in baseball has always been razor thin, and it always will be. What Webb saw in that fourth inning was real. What he felt, the sense that something was wrong, was honest. And the fact that the investigation found no conclusive evidence does not erase what happened on that mound, in that inning, in that moment when one of the most composed pitchers in the sport finally broke. The investigation results have been released. The video has been analyzed. The league has spoken. But the conversation, about sign stealing, about preparation, about the invisible war between the pitcher and the dugout, is far from over. And the next time Logan Webb faces Shohei Ohtani, every single person watching will be watching something far deeper than the pitch.